Parashat Terumah. The parasha begins with a Kadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Bnei Israel that they should make a terumah, a donation, a gift for the Mishkan. Each member of the Bnei Israel has the opportunity to give towards the building of the Mishkan, which is going to be the residence, if we can say that, of Hashem's presence in the world. A concentrated presence of God would emanate, would be found centralized in the Mishkan. And each member of the Jewish people is told by Moshe Rabbeinu, who is in turn told by Hashem, that they can make a gift, a contribution towards the Mishkan. However, unlike many other mitzvot we have, the Torah specifically does not say that this is an obligation. It's not obligatory for anybody in Klal Yisrael to give anything towards the Mishkan. The binyan of the Mishkan, the building of the Mishkan, would be only from those who wish to give. Me'ed kol ish asher yidevenu libo, in the words of the Pasuk. From each man whose heart has made him want to give. Tikhu et terumati. From him, from them, take my terumah. Take a contribution towards the Mishkan, says Hashem. Clearly, the Torah doesn't want this to be an obligation. The Torah wants this to be a voluntary act, based on one's emotion, based on one's heartfelt wish to give. So I'd like to talk a bit about giving. Giving is a central theme in Judaism. In fact, the Baal HaSulam, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag, who was a great Kabbalist, he passed away about 50 odd years ago in Israel. The Baal HaSulam, he actually makes an assertion, which is well founded. He says, to be a metiv, to give, is conceptually the closest place I can be to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah says, you shall cling to Hashem. Say the Chachamim, how can you cling to Hashem? Can you cling to Hashem? Can you hold on to Him? Say the Chachamim, this mitzvah means, Mahu rachum afatarachum. Emulate Him. Behave like Hashem. Act. Be conceptually similar. Do the same parulot, do the same actions that Hashem would do. Like He is merciful, so too shall you be merciful. Says the Baal HaSulam, the highest, the deepest perception we have of Hashem, of the Creator, is the first act that Hashem expresses Himself through is the act of hatava, is the act of giving, to bestow goodness upon someone else. I once heard a beautiful saying. Spirituality at its peak is when you close your eyes, you're at peace. And when you open them, your question is, how can I help? What can I do for you? And that, according to the Baal HaSulam, is what we should strive for. Rabbi Akiva is well known to have said, "Va'avta l're'acha kamocha." Ze klal gadol b'Torah. The mitzvah that the Torah tells us to love one's fellow as themselves is a fundamental rule in the Torah. And it's fundamental because the whole Torah is a beautiful picture that brings us closer to Hashem, that makes us more similar to Hashem, to be a metiv. And here the Torah is telling us to be a metiv, to be a giver. You can't just follow obligations. You at some point have to realize, this is what I want to do. Because that's the ultimate act of giving. You're not a giver if you're being forced to do it. Like the Chachamim say, don't be like a servant who serves his master in order to get food, to get reward. That's not the idea. The idea of being a giver is to realize, this is what I want, this is who I am. And that's how we can go forward in the Torah. And that's the mitzvah of Terumah. Me'et kol ish asher yidevenu libo tikhu et terumati. The Terumah of the Mishkan, the donation, the contribution of the Mishkan, had to be from a place of voluntariness, where people wanted to give. I just want to give a short example to illustrate the point of how much our intentions affect our actions. If somebody would tell you that you have the opportunity to give £1,000 every month to tzedakah, to charity, I'm sure that £1,000, that act of charity, that charitable act, would make an impact on us. We'd become better people. We'd become more compassionate. It's not only the compassionate person that actually acts with compassion. It's also when we act with compassion, we become more compassionate. However, if I were to tell you that many of us do give £1,000 a month to tzedakah, we call it taxation. We give money to people who need money, indirectly, but that's at least partially the point. Why don't we feel like we're giving tzedakah? Why aren't we affected? Why don't we feel that we've done a good thing? Why aren't we affected in becoming better people through that? And I think the simple answer is because we haven't got a choice. We don't perceive it as an act of giving. We perceive it as, I'm being taxed. So there you are. There's an example of how much the fact that we choose to do something affects the fundamental principle of the act which we do. Let's take that as a message from this week's parasha.